Yeah. Hello everyone. In the last class, we focused on architecture of JVM. So now in today's class, we'll be going to discuss about variables in Java. So first we'll start with the introduction part of variable. So what is meant by variable? It is like a name which is given to a memory location in the Java. Like how we put names to ourselves to identify each other, man to man. So there are multiple people around us to identify each other, to call each other. So we'll put a name. To call each other, we'll have a name, right? So in the same way, here a variable in name is used to call the data which is being stored in a memory. Okay, so it is like a location name where the data is being stored. So to identify a person, how we are giving names to us, in the same way, it is like an identifier to identify the data in a memory. Okay, so what does it store? It stores the data values during the program execution. Just Now remember like how we are giving names to identify each other, to call each other. In the same way, a variable is nothing but an identifier. With this identifier, we can access the data which is storing in the memory. We can call the data whichever you want using the reference or using the name called a variable which is being stored in the memory. Okay, so that is about the variable. So, how many types of variables we have in Java? There are the three types: local variable, instance variable, static variable. Okay. So, firstly, three types: local variable. Local variable means which is declared inside the method or a constructor block. Let's understand with an example. Like, so we'll put a nicknames to us, right? These names we use these names inside our home only. Others will don't know. Okay, so they don't know if we if we use this name outside, because this name will be these nicknames only knows only for particular persons. So in the same way, a variable which is used inside a method or a constructor or a block, restricted or reserved areas, like if we use it inside a method or a constructor or block, this comes under like those variables are called as an example. If you compare with the nicknames, if you are trying to access outside of that method or a constructor or a block, if you are calling, if you are using that name outside of your family or anywhere, others will not understand about that name, who is that person. If you are calling with that nickname inside, like uh, best friends will keep nicknames, right? Yes or no? So if you are using that name in your college, people will does not understand who is that person. Only you and your best friend knows about that nickname. So they'll know that original or official name which you have registered in college. So here in the same way, here the local variable which you have declared inside method or constructor will understand. But if you are trying to access that a variable outside that method or constructor, that method will give an error. In such situations, you'll get an error because you can access the data only inside that method. Others, outside that method or a constructor, you cannot access it. Okay, so here, if you are just declaring, if you are giving a name, there should be a person. Okay, without that person, you are calling. In that situations, people, that is not correct, right? So in the same way, here you have declared a variable called as a name, but you didn't, there is no value to that variable. There is nothing is stored in that variable. That is not acceptable. Okay, that is about the local variable. Just understand with a real-time example how we are putting nickname. Only few people will understand our nicknames, others will not know. If we are using that nickname outside, uh, not in between or outside, or in like so if we are using that name outside our home, others will not understand, right? The same way, we have declared a variable that is called a nickname inside a method, but you are trying to access outside that method, like outside our home. So in that situation, here Java will give an error that is not accepted. And here you are calling a person with a nickname, but that person is not available. So you are just doing some plan. In the same way, you are just declared a variable and you are not assigning any data. That is not acceptable in Java. Okay, like in TA, you just declared. You did not assign any value to that variable. So that is also not acceptable. You will get an error. That is about the local variable, which is declared inside a method or a constructor. Okay, you have to initialize the value and you have to access only inside that block. If you are trying to access or if you are trying to access without declaring initializing the value, in that situation, you will get an error. That is about the local variable. I hope you understand. Next, instance variable. Instance variable means the name which you, if you take with a real-time example, the name you have taken to call by everyone. Okay, outside of the method, like outside of your home, that name will be used. That is about instance variable. So here the variable name which you have declared outside of any method, that will be accessible by everyone. Any person can use that name. Like anyone can call your using that name. Anyone can call you in the same way. Here that person is sorry. Here the variable is declared outside of the method. Okay, but here the person here the person or the man which is outside of any method. Like just remember, just take an example. The person who will always roam outside. So they are not inside the home. They always roam outside. So how do you find that person when you want? So always they'll roam with their friends, right? We just call their friends. Where are they? So we'll use the reference call as a friend to identify that person. In the same way here, a variable which is declared outside of any method, to access that data, we need a reference called object. Here, in real time, to access a person, we need how we are using a friends to call them. In the same way, here a variable if you declare outside that method, you have to use a reference call as an object. Using that only you can access the data. That data is nothing but an instance variable. Instance variable only accessed with the reference call as an object. Okay. So in this case, you will not get any error if it is not initialized. Means you have just called. If that person is not available, that no problem. Okay. Like you just declared a variable X, but you did not assign any value, then it is okay, no problem. Here, a default value will be generated. Okay. So how, like in the real time, if you are calling a friend, like that person is not available, no problem. So that is about the instance variable. Next, static variable. Static variable means inside one name, outside one name, not like that. There is a fixed name that will not be changed. That name will be used inside and outside of the. So this person will not allow us to use any nicknames or any name to call them. That there is a name that person allows to. Is a very strict person allows to call with that name only. Here, a variable which is declared with a static keyword called as a that strict person, and this data will not be changed. Okay, so this person is belong to that class, and here we are not required any reference like a friend reference to call that. We can call that person directly because he is very unique and very strict, so that we can find out easily just by just use the reference keyword called as a static keyword. We can identify that person easily. Okay, so here the variable is declared with the static keyword. That data will be accessed directly without any reference call as an object. Okay, that is very important. That is called as a static variable. We can call it as a class variable. I'm just giving an example to understand the concept clearly. This is our overall idea. What is meant by variable? What are the different types of variables? Okay, we have seen local variable, instance variable, and static variable. So here the variable declaration and instance initialization. Like how we choose the names based on like in Telugu we go to temples or uh, and we'll check our initial names and family and grandfather names. We'll put it. There are some rules to put a name, right? And In the same way, we have some rules to define a variable. Okay, so here how we are identifying a person with initial of that family initial. In the same way, a variable will be declared with the type of data that is called the declaration. So whether the person is belongs to the which family we are identifying based on the initialization, we have to declare the type of variable, whether it is an integer or a string number or a character or anything, which type of data you are entering, that you have to mention. How we are using an initial, which person. In the same way here, we need to use the data type before the variable. Here the data type is nothing but initial, a variable is nothing but our name. Okay, so uh, and after declaring a name, you are just assigning the data. Okay, so that is some value you can assign it based on the type of data you are declaring it. You are next, and both you can do it in one line: declaration and initialization. Okay, so how we can give the name after immediately a person born, or else we can take some time to give the name to that person. That is in declaration, initialization, or else in a single line: declaration plus initialization. This is about the variable declaration and initialization. So it is very important that which type of data you are entering, that will be declared before the variable name, either it integer or a character or a string. Okay, next. And I already informed you that there are some rules we use to keep the name in real time. In the same way, we have some rules to keep a name, variable name. So like um, the variable should not start with any numbers, and it should not, it always start with uh, letters and not any characters, and it should not use any reserved words which is already being used. Like, so in our family, already your sister is having some name, do you use the same name to put your, no, right? There will be confusion between you and your sister. There should be different names. In the same way, there are already some reserved words, some names which is already defined in the Java program. Those names cannot be used as a variable name. Those already defined names are called as a reserved keywords. Thus, we cannot use it as a variable name. That is very important. Okay. So meaningful names we have to use to call each other, and if it is easy, then it will be easy for us to call. In the same way, variable name also should be meaningful to identify. Next, data types with variables. It is already discussed. So which type of data you are entering, that you have to mention before the variable. Like, so which family you are related to, your initial how it is important. In the same way, type of data is also very important. So let's see one example in Java program. Just now we discussed complete theoretical part. Let's have a quick idea about the variables. Variable is just like a container where it will hold the data. Okay, so we have to mention the type of data before the variable name, and we have to assign the value to the variable if it is a local variable. If it is no instance or static, no problem, we will get the default value. Okay, so the variable, if it is a local variable, it is accessed only inside the method. If it is an instance variable, we can access outside the method. If it is a static variable, the data will be fixed, it will not be changed, and we can access the data directly. But if it is an instance, we need some reference called as object. Using that reference only, we can access that outside of that variable, outside a many, outside the method variable. Okay, so this is the theoretical part. Let's see the practically one example. So just open Notepad or Notepad++. I'm opening it. So you can see that green color icon if you have installed it. So I have already write that program. See that file name. One sec. Uh, local example that I have searched. Local example dot Java file. So I have to open dot Java file with edit notepad. Yes. If I open this class file, what happens? It will be in a different format. So this is not source code. That is a byte code that we discussed when we discussed about the JVM architecture. Okay. So this is a byte code which is converted after compiling it. Okay. I already run that program. That's why it is generated. If I run, okay, let's see again. So not this local logical. So this is an example program of a local variable. So what I have explained, a variable which is declared inside a method or any block, such kind of variables are called as local variable, right? Yes or no? One second. Yeah. See, here, you know the code, public class local example. That is a class name. You have local example is your class name, and you declare your class as public so that anyone can access this example. If you don't declare this public, also no problem. When we discussed about the access modifier, then you'll understand about these keywords, public, private, everything. Just leave about this public keyword, and the Java program is start with the keyword called as a class, and the class name here I have given is local example because this is an example program for local variable. That's why I have given. Next, I have written a program. I have written one method public void show. Okay, so how do you identify this method? There is a return type called as void, and there is a parenthesis. When you see the return type and parenthesis, that can be called, and curly braces open and close, this is called as a method. Okay, return type parenthesis block of code represents a method. So method name I have given as a show. This is user defined, and in this method I declared a variable. That variable name I have given as local variable. This is a variable name. Okay, variable name you can give any, and the value I have assigned 10. Since 10 is an integer, so integer type of data you represent in which type of data type you need to use? Int. So int data type is used to store integer values. Okay, so class name you have, class you created, method you have created, and you declared a variable. This is declared inside a method. Okay, so inside the method variable is a local variable. This variable is comes under local variable because it is declared inside that. You can access this value, local variable, inside this method. When you call this method, it will be display this answer. But if you are trying to access directly outside the method, in that situation you will get error. See, let's see this example first so that you'll understand clearly. Both are same, right? Public class, public void show, int local variable. One second, I'll explain here only. So public static void main is the main method. This is the user defined method. This is also method, but it is user defined. Here, this is the starting point of your execution, where execution will start. Even you write 100 lines of code, those lines will not execute. When execution will start, where your main method executes, starts. From 7th line, your execution will start. Okay, compiler will check the whole program. When you are executing, it will start executing from the 7th line. So public static void main string array aux is the main method syntax. In this main method, what you have written, this is the syntax of creation of an object. local example object equal to new local example. So I said uh, about the instance variable, right? But I am talking about the local variable here. So now understand the instance variable where you have to create an object to call the non-static variable, like sorry, with the value which is declared outside the method, right? So for that we are creating a value object. So that uh, object creation syntax is class name, class name. This is just to understand the syntax. Class name, object reference variable, where whatever you can want to give, you can give that variable name, that is our wish. New keyword and the class name. Okay, this is the syntax of uh, creation of an object. Just leave about this. Uh, Now we are discussing about the local variable, right? Local variable means a variable which is declared inside the method. That variable called as a local variable, and it is cannot be accessed outside that method. If you are trying to access, you will get an error. So here the variable is where inside the show method, but I will try to access this variable. Let's try it. How to print system dot out dot print ln. I will try to print this local variable. Do I get the value or not? Let's check it. Okay. To print the value on the console, we need to use the statement system.out.println. Save the program. Uh, this PC E drive Java course folder I'm saving here with the name called as local example. Okay. This file is already being saved. No, I don't want to save it again. So you have written the program where you declared a variable inside the method and you are trying to access it outside the method. First, I will show the error. Okay. So to compile, so you have written the code in the notepad and you need to compile and run, right? So just open CMD. So here the path is different. I explained how to set path also. Here the path is C uses admin, but my file is in E drive. So I have to set to E drive. Just clear this. So in E drive, my file is in which folder? Java course. I have created a separate folder for all Java files. Java course. To redirect to the folder, I'm using the command cd and folder name Java course. Now, sorry, I will enter it correct. cd Java course. Okay, now it is correct. Space errors. So now I'm in a correct path where my file is stored. Now to compile the Java program, to check the errors, what is the command we need to use? Java C file name. File name I have used is local example, which is the same as class name. To avoid the confusion, I have used both class name and file name, same. But you can give any file name. But if your class name should not be public, then only you can give any file name. If your class name is public and you are trying to give a different name, in such situations, you'll get an error. Okay. So Java C local example. See the error. It is giving an error called as error cannot find symbol. Even you have assigned the value 10 to the local variable, but it is giving, it is not finding. Means how I explained with the nickname, outside people doesn't know the nickname of us, right? Only inside the people. Here inside people is show. Show will understand this local variable, but this main method doesn't understand this local variable. That's why it is saying that cannot find the symbol. Okay, so just remove this line. I have removed it. Now I am accessing this method because now how I will print this value. This value is in method, right? Now I will call this method. So when you have created a method, you should call that method, then only that method will be executed. Just creating a method that will not execute. You have to call that method explicitly. So how to call this method? You need to create an object reference. So local example, obj, new local example. This is the syntax to create an object. What is the original syntax? The class name that you have used. Here the class name is local variable. Object reference variable, you can give any name. I have used obj, and new is a keyword which is used to create a new object. Since Java is deals with class and objects, I already discussed. Here, using this new keyword, we are creating a new object. Okay, next, local example. Just at present, remember, this is the syntax to create a new object. What is the syntax to create a new object? Class name, a reference variable equal to new class name. Okay, so here the class name I have used local variable, sorry, local example, and reference variable obj, you can give any name, new, and local example, again the class name. This is the syntax. Now I created an object reference obj. Using this object reference, I'm calling this outside method data. Yes, this is the main method. Outside the main method, we need to access through a reference, that is called as the non-static data, we can call, or we can call it as a instance data. Okay, the data which is being declared outside of main method is called as a non-instance data. Okay, so this show method is an instant method which is not being inside the method, which is declared inside the class outside of main method. Okay, so this method you need to access inside the method because it is inside the class outside the main method. Where your execution starts? Inside the main method only, right? Even it is in the class, it will not execute. It has to call inside the main method, then only this method will be executed. That's why I am calling this method using the reference called as obj. How I created obj? Using the class name, using syntax, class name reference variable equal to new class name. Okay, just remember here I'm trying to explain the different concepts. This is an example program for a local variable where you are trying to access the local variable inside the main method, but it is declared outside the method. That is point I already discussed. Even if you are trying to access that value, if you are declared outside the method, that you cannot access it. So here, that I already discussed, I have shown the error. Now, how to get this value? You declared inside the method, right? You are trying to print here. If you call this method, you will get that value. So to call this method, I'm creating an object. Why here object is required? Because this is a non-static method or an instance method. How can you call this as a non-static method? There is no static keyword before this. Okay, and it is declared inside the class but outside the method. If that method is not with any static keyword, that is a non-static method or instance method. You can call this method using a reference called as an object. How to create? Using the class name. You created a reference variable and you are calling this method. So when you are calling, this data will be accessed inside the main method. Okay. Now you should get the output as local variable answer 10. Just we done some changes, right? Let's save the program and try to execute. Uh, to execute, to compile, we'll just check it whether do we get any error or not. See here, we are not getting any error. Previously, when you are trying to access outside that method, show method, it is giving error. Now, you are accessing the data through reference variable. Okay, so you are just calling that method, which is declared inside that value. Now we'll run that program. Java. Come, the Java C local example.java is used to compile the code. Now there is no error. That's why it is not displaying. So if it is not displaying any error, that means compiled. It converted into the bytecode. Now your turn is to execute the code. To execute the code, we have to use the command called as a Java and class name. Class name I have used local example. See, we are getting output local variable. Okay. Previously we didn't get. Now we are getting output local variable 10. I hope you understand. So any non-static data means any data, it is not declared as static if it is outside this main method, inside the class, outside the main method, and it is non-static. Remember the point. The data is declared inside the class, outside the main method, and it is non-static. I mean, not static. Such kind of data you want to access in main method. To access the data, you need a reference. For that, we are creating an object using a class name, a reference variable, new keyword. Now you created a reference variable. Using that reference, you are calling that non-static data, whether it may be a variable or a method. This is a non-static method. Okay. Inside this non-static method, you have created a variable. This variable is a local variable. This method is non-static method. We discussed about the non-static method, or else we can call it as instance method. This variable is called as a local variable. That's why when you are trying to access directly outside the method, you are getting error. But when you call this method, it will be accessed inside the method. That's why you got output. You call this method, you are not calling the value. Okay, so you are not trying to print the value, you are just calling. Inside this you'll get value, right? That's why you got the output local variable 10. Now you understood about the local variable, right? Next, instance variable. Instance example that I used, just check the file, e drive java course search instance. Yeah, so I already compiled. That's why there are two files, dot class file and Java file. Just open this Java file, see the example. So what about instance variable? A variable which is declared inside the class outside the main method. Such kind of variables are called as instance variables. So here, a instance variable I declared inside the class. That class name is instance example. This is the class name. In this instance example class, I declared a variable, instance variable, which is inside the class but not in any method. Okay, remember here. In the previous example, it is inside the method. In this example, it is inside the class but outside the any method. Okay. This kind of database you can access the reference variable. How do you access this database? You can access See the output instance variable 25 and 20. So here another concept that I am trying to explain is, here you have created two objects, two boxes. One is obj1, another is obj2. In one box you have stored 25 using the variable instance variable. So that is a printed. That is how, but here see obj1 dot display. Using the display object, you are calling this method. Okay. Display is a non-static method which is declared inside the class outside the method. Here there are 2 points here. Instance variable is a instance var. This is an instance variable. This is an instance method. These two data we can call using a reference. Okay. So I will try to print obj1 dot 1 dot instance variable. So what I explained, we can call the value non-static data or instance data using an object reference, right? That point I'm trying to explain here in the 11th line. So you are using a reference called as obj1 and you are calling your variable instance variable. Let's check it. Do we get an output or not? So you change it, you done save changes, right? So save it, compile and run. See, you got the output 20, not 25. Even it has a 25 here, that is in the next line, you got output 20. You are accessing obj1 dot instance variable. Using this reference, you are calling this value. Okay, I hope you understood. That's why you got 20. But in the next line, you update that value. Now you change it that value from 20 to 25. That's why you got 25. How you got 25? So here, in this case, in the 11th line, you got 20. That is okay, clear. In the next line, you updated the value to 25 uh, and you are calling a method display. Okay, you are calling this method using a reference called as obj1. So here, in this case, you are getting uh, 25. So why? Because you just now you updated the value 25. Okay. So that updated value will be printed. In the second example, obj1, obj2 dot display. In this object, there is no instance variable and the no value will be updated. So what happens in this case? Which value will be printed? So it will take that instance variable which is declared inside the class. That value will be printed. That is a default value. Okay, I hope you understand. So in the 11th line, you just call the value instance variable using a reference variable. That's why you got 20. But in the 12th line, you updated 20 to 25. And if you are calling that value using that obj, it is updated. So that's why you got 25 output. But using new object you are calling, it is not updated. In the new object 2, it is not updated. In object 1 only, you updated the instance variable. Okay, there are the two boxes, obj1 and obj2. Initially, it takes the value 20. Later, you change it 20 to 25 in obj1. That's why you got 25. In obj2, you not assign any value previously. That's why you have taken the original value 20, which is there. Okay. This is the instance variable. I hope you understand. If it is a variable which is declared inside the class outside of the main method, that variable is called an instance variable. A variable which is declared inside the class without any static keyword, that method is called as an instance method or a non-static method. This is about instance variable concept. How to call, how to execute that non-static data or instance variable or instance methods, we need a reference. That reference syntax is class name, object name equal to new class name. This is the syntax to create a new object reference. This is very important. Since Java is an object-oriented programming, we deal with a class and objects. Okay, so this is about instance variable. Now we'll see one more example, that is a static or a class variable. So what I explained, where the variable is declared with the keyword called as static, that variable is called as a static variable, right? Let's see the example. Variable name static. Yeah, open this file with edit no plus plus. See this example. So what I told, a variable which is declared with the keyword called as static, that data will be declared, that variable is called as a static variable, and that doesn't need any reference because your main method is a static keyword. So what is the main method? We can understand one keyword meaning, static. Now, what is the meaning of static? It doesn't need any reference to execute. Uh, See, in the previous example, we understood that any method, if it is not static, if it is not declared with the static keyword, that method need to be called with a reference. That is, we learned in the instance variable example, right? Display method is not declared with the keyword called as static. It has a, it should be called, it should be executed with the reference only, right? So that's why we have created a reference variable and we called. So now let's go with this main method. Why you declared this main method as a static, now you can understand. So every time to call this main method, we need to create a reference variable. If it is not static, if you are not declared with the static keyword, if you are not declared your main method with not static keyword, not with the static keyword, what happens? You need to create an object reference to call this main method every time. Yes or no? So that's why without any reference, this main method will be executed. For that purpose, we declared your void main as a static. Okay, in Java, why void main contains the static keyword means it doesn't require any reference directly, it will be executed. Okay, so here that is the meaning of the static keyword. So you declare this static variable, static var with a keyword called static. So it doesn't need any reference like an instance variable, instance var. You can call this value, you can directly print this value inside this main method because your main method is also static, right? So same family allowed. If it's not same family, need reference. Okay, see, let's see this example so that you can understand. Java C, what is the class name, file name I have given? Static example dot java. So here my program is compiled. So just I'm not creating any objects here. Just I'm commenting. Use back two front slashes to comment any line. Do not execute. So I'm just commenting to understand, to make you understand. So what is the concept here? Static data will be directly accessed inside the static area, right? Because your main method is static. Now I'll try to execute this int ln static var. In local variable, when you try to print, you got an error, cannot find symbol. In static variable, you trying to print, it's saying that non-static data cannot be accessed inside the static context. That you got error in instance variable. Now in static variable, let's see, do we get any error or not? You changed code, right? You need to compile it again. It is saying that error. Sorry, I did not save. There is a program. Now I didn't get any error. Means the code is fine, no error. Java class name static example 30. See here, I did not get any error. I got this value inside this main method. But when it comes to the instance variable, when you are trying to print instance variable, just like this, you got an error called as non-static data cannot be accessed inside the static area. When you are trying to print this local variable inside the main method, It is saying that cannot find symbol because you can access the data only inside the method. That variable is local variable. So here it is an instance variable, you need a reference. That's why you got error. But here you did not get error because it is a static. You declared this variable with a static keyword. Just observe the difference between local variable, instance variable, and a static variable. I hope you understand, right? You can call the static data inside the static area without any reference. Okay. See here, this public void show is non-static. That I already discussed about the non-static. Just let's declare this static. This method also static. Now just call this method without any reference. I'm just calling this method without reference. I'm removing this. So for non-static, your show method is now static, right? Static method will be called directly without any reference, just like a main method, how it is being executed. Let's see, do we get error or output? See, you got output, right? Static variable 30. But here in this case, you created an object. With that object, you call this method and it is being printed. But here without any reference, you got this value 30 and you call this method and it is being printed. Okay. This is about the static variable. Without any reference, we can access the data. Okay. And where do we can use the static data? Where the data will not be changed throughout our program. Like college name of the student, that will not be where not that will not change through student to student, right? Each and every student of that college can have the same college name, but name and roll number will be varied. That will be that we can declare as an instance because object here, every object you need to update, every student you need to update name and roll number. Such kind of data you can declare as an instance. Here the college name you can declare it as static. So this data will not be changed once you declare it. Okay. So here the same copy will be shared with all objects. See here, static. I'm removing the comments to understand the concept. Um, obj1 dot show. Now let's see the output. I hope you are understanding. After doing any changes, you need to save and you need to compare and run. Otherwise, you'll get the same output. See the output here 30 static variable, static variable. 30 why I got first. So only here, okay, there's a one print line. That is I directly accessing it. In this 13th line, I'm just calling this obj1 dot. I created two objects, two objects obj1 and obj2. Using obj1, you are calling this method. In the first case, you are getting 35. In obj2, you are getting 35 because you updated that static variable using obj. See, observe the difference. In the previous example, you updated the value instance variable using obj1. Okay. So in this case, what happened? OBJ you updated like one student. Let's say OBJ1 is a student one. That student value is 25. Roll number is 25 that you updated. Okay. So again you are trying to print OBJ2. What happens? You did not get the OBJ1 updated value 25. You got the default value 20. So this default value, if you declare it happens, all students will get the same roll number 20, 20, 20, right? So instead of this, you can update this value object to object like this. So just understand with a real world example, student roll numbers, where the roll number will be changed from student to student, object to objects. Each student object to each student object, you need to update. Yes or no? Where each student has a unique roll number. It will not update for each and it will not share the same copy to all the objects. You need to update it. That is an instance when you want to change the data. Like the instance variable means where the value will be changing from object to object, just like a roll number is changing from student to student. Such kind of data will be declared as an instance variable, because here the data will be updated through each and every object, which changes to each and every object, right? So instead of creating n number of variables to the n number of students, you're just creating a variable one that is called as a roll number. And using that one variable called as a roll number, you are updating roll numbers to each and every student. You're not creating n number of roll numbers to update uh, roll numbers to the students. Using a single variable called as a roll number and declaring it as an instance variable, you're just updating each and every student roll numbers. I hope you understand. If it is not, if you have not declared it as an instance variable, what happens? You need to create student 1 roll number equal to student 1, student 2 roll number equal to student 3 roll number equal to. You need to create n number of roll numbers and you need to update it. That is like a rocker. That is very fast process and lengthy, right? So instead of creating n number of variables to store the data using a single variable, that is called an instance variable, you are updating the value to each and every object. So it is here, remember, value you need to update each and every student, but you're using a reference variable called as a one. Like instead of assigning single faculty to the each and every student in the classroom, you're using a single teacher assigning uh, teaching the class to the entire all the students. Like instance variable is a single faculty. uh, Using that single faculty, you are delivering the data to the each and every student. Okay, so here the static data, where you can use this static keyword, where the data will not change to object, student to student. So here the data may be college name. The college name will not be changed to object, like student to student, right? Here, uh, if you declare that the college name here, that will not be changed. No need to update student one college name, student two college name, like how we are updating roll number. Roll numbers we need to update because it is varied from object to object. So using a single variable, you are updating each and every object, each and every student details. But it is not required, right? Because it is a single copy that we can share it. Like how we are using Excel, just copy paste when it is a common. If it is not common, how we are entering manually. There is a difference between instance and static. Like what is the difference between instance and static? Just how we are putting the fields in the first row, name, roll number, which is applied to all the remaining rows. When you see the first column, you can understand the data, right? Like that, here the instance variable, the first column. If that any data is common for each and every student, then we'll just copy paste. First, we'll enter it to the one student. We just drag it and paste it. The same way here, the static variable, when you when you enter the data, when you feel the data is fixed to each and every object, you can directly enter using the keyword called as static here, and the same data will be shared to all the objects. Okay, so you have updated here. This updated 35 will be printed to object 1 and object 2. Like how you got 35, 35. How do you did not get 30, right? Because it is updated, it is shared to all objects. The same copy will be shared. I hope you understand about the difference between instance and static and local. So all three variables in a single program. If you see this, you can understand more clearly. Let's see all variable types. See here. Now you tell me uh, the class name is all variable types and instance variable. This is an instance variable because it is declared inside the class, but it is not in any method. Next, which type of variable it is? It is a static variable because it is declared inside the class and with a keyword called as static. Okay, so it is no avoid assigning value to the instance variable because that data will be changed to object, like how the roll number will be varied to student. But in this example, I assign, but understand the difference between instance and static and purpose of these variables. Next, static because like how college name is same for all the students in the college. Such kind of data you can declare with the static keyword. How we are just copy, how we enter the one data to the one student, remaining you copy it. In the same way, the single copy will be shared with all other objects. That is about the static variable. Single copy will be shared with all other object instances. Next, this is an instance variable, static variable. Which type of method it is? It is a non-static method because there is no static keyword before this method. If you declare it as a static, then it becomes a static method. You can directly access without this reference variable. You can directly call this method just demo. Okay, but it is not static. That's why you have created an object obj and you are calling this. So see here, there are three types of variables I'm trying to print. Local variable, because it is an instant method, you should get 15 output. Instance variable, instance variable is nothing but inside the class, outside the method, you should get the output 5. And static variable, variable which is declared with the static keyword, that is a static variable, you should get 10. Let's run this program. Java C, all variable types dot Java. See, I did not get any error. Compiled. So no error in our program. Let's run it. All see the commands for compiling Java C file name. I'm using the same class name and file name. You can give any name, but your class name should not be public. Try to execute, declare the class as public, try to give different name, check the error, rectify it, practice. You'll understand it. All variable types. Sorry, I given wrong name. All variable types. B capital. I should give B capital. See the output. Local variable 15 because it is declared inside the 15. Sorry, inside the method. Next, instance variable. Instance variable inside the class, outside the method. That value is 5. Next, static. Static variable is declared with the keyword static. That's why you got 10. So this is the about variables in Java. Now, in this class, you understand about what is meant by variable, what are the different types of variables, what is meant by local variable, what is meant by instance variable, what is meant by static variable, where we use this instance, which data will be declared as an instance variable, which data will be declared as a static variable, how to access instance data, how to create an object, which data will be accessed using object reference, which data will be declared as a static keyword, and why main method contains the keyword static, which is very important. Okay, one keyword we covered. Why main, why declared as a static. Okay, so how to like static methods, non-static methods, static variables, non-static variables. Okay, all the many points we covered in this video. I hope you understand the today's topic, variables in Java. If you have understood and you like the video, please do subscribe to my channel for more videos and give me some feedback in the comment section what I need to improve and what are your expectations, what you are expecting from me. Okay, so that I can make video according to your requirement or your need. Mhm. That's all for today. Thank you.